Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving to today's first story, about OP's revenge on her principal, because she despised OP for being smarter than her daughter, and attempted to fail her in examinations. Now story. I knew that going to a private school while on scholarship would bring a lot of challenges, and I experienced a lot of bullying over the years. I tried my hardest not to bring attention to myself and lay low, but I was bullied and mistreated because of my race. But still, I put my head down and did what I could, so that I could get into my dream college. However, when I was in the middle of my senior year, I was informed that I would have to repeat the year because I had failed and hadn't attended school 80% of the time. But that is not the truth. It was all part of a plan to put me down and make sure that I never succeed. I am F18, and I am black. I come from a poor household where my parents, M36 and F34, try their hardest to provide for me and my 3 siblings. Yes, my mother had me. She was just a teen and she could not finish her education. My father also had to start working at a young age to support his family. We do not have much and try our best to make ends meet, but as the oldest, I find that a lot of responsibilities fall on me. I am like the deputy parent when my parents are not there. I went to a small school in our community where I did well academically despite the lack of resources. I knew that our situation at home would make it difficult for me to follow my dreams, but that did not discourage me. I have always wanted to be an accountant because I am good with numbers and love solving problems. I had some of the highest marks in my commerce subjects and caught the attention of a high school on the wealthier side of town where I was encouraged to apply for a scholarship. To my surprise, I was given a full scholarship for the rest of my high school career, but nothing prepared me for the way I was going to be treated there. From the first day there, I was told that my hair was unpresentable and I would have to find a way to make it straighter. This was a huge shock for me, and I even told my mother that I did not want to go back there the very same day. I had a teacher tell me that it was a respectable school and my hair was distracting to the other students and that you people have braids, right? Do that or relax your hair, and the whole class laughed at me. Most of the black kids who went there did not have their natural hair and seemed to have adapted to what the school wanted. I was forced to straighten my hair after being called into the principal's office on the very first day. She told me not to be difficult and angry, as that was not the way a young lady should have behaved. My mother refused to let me quit school and told me to prove them wrong and show them why I wanted that scholarship. I was picked on for being a scholarship kid from the first day, almost as if a line had been drawn between me and the fortunate kids. But it did not matter to me because I had gone there to learn and not to make friends. But the following years were some of the hardest and loneliest. I was bullied by the principal's daughter after I had come top of the class during the first semester. She was so angry when I had higher marks than her in most subjects that she was convinced that I cheated. From that day, Vivian and her rich friends made sure that I was excluded from every social activity while calling me names like hood rats, among other things. I never had any friends as everyone was too scared to go against Vivian. I never told anyone about it. She was the principal's daughter, after all, the same woman who disliked me. Me going to a more demanding high school meant more work for me, as my younger siblings do need help with some other stuff and my parents are always tired. It took a lot of getting used to, and there were days when I would not be looking my best. Instead of trying to understand or ask me what was wrong, the teachers would make jokes that I was out in the clubs the previous day. I was the one person they were free to expose their racism and prejudice with no consequences because I did not want to jeopardize my scholarship. The principal made sure to subtly indicate that I was a charity case whenever she had to do a speech in front of the school. When the bullying got too much and I brought the complaints to her, she told me that I had to be grateful that a person like me was let into the school. She would also tell me that many kids were dying for a spot at their school. I got a lot of racist comments from both students and teachers alike, but I saw that when it came to students of color who came from rich families, they got a better treatment. For a long time, this made me feel that maybe it was because I was poor. I thought that they singled me out because they knew my parents would never sue them or expose them for who they were. By the time I was in my senior year, I was thriving academically, with Vivian trailing close behind me. By then I had developed a very thick skin that no amount of cyberbullying could go through. I never told my parents because I did not want them to have more problems in their lives. I just gritted my teeth and took each day as a step closer to getting my parents through poverty. In the middle of my senior year, I had already been invited for an interview with my dream college, but so had Vivian. Rumors were going around that they were either going to take one or both of us for early admissions. But the funny part was how the school supported Vivian and made it seem like she was the only one to qualify for that spot. I worked very hard so that I would have a good chance of being accepted. It was especially hard for me because I had to share my room with my sisters and take care of them most of the time while my parents were at work. I worked myself to the point of burning up, waking up early in the morning while everyone else was fast asleep to study. For me, it was a desperate situation because that was one of the best colleges and it was not too far from home, along with the opportunity to get a full scholarship. Now imagine my horror when, instead of getting my results so that I would send them to college, I was called in for a disciplinary hearing at school. When I got there, they told me that they would have to make me repeat the year because I did not meet the requirements to graduate. I could not afford to repeat a year, that offer would not be there by the time I repeated, and nothing made sense to me. I had worked myself to the bone so that I would have nothing but straight A's. It got to a point where I was dreaming about the subjects that I was studying, so how could they say that I failed? Vivian was the highest in the grade thanks to me failing, and she made sure to tell everyone who could hear about it that she was going to my dream college. She passed by the office while her mother was telling me that my life was over, and I wanted to wipe the smirk on her face so badly. She did not hesitate to let me know later on that I was never going to become anything and I would remain in the dirt because that was where I belonged. Their parents demanded to know everything about why I had supposedly failed, and they produced documents that I had not attended school 80% of the time, so they required me to make me repeat the year. They also claimed that I had cheated on my tests and assignments. It did not make any sense at all because I had never missed a day of school, ever. There had been a few times I was sick, but that was just a few days. My records clearly showed that I had been skipping school for months. I begged the principal to do something about it, otherwise I was going to be forced to forfeit my early acceptance to the college. But I saw in her eyes that she was happy about what was happening. It hit me then that she was the one responsible for this because she did not want me to be accepted. Maybe my marks were so much better than her daughter's that she was scared that her daughter's chances were slim. My parents refused to believe that I had bunked school or failed dismally because they knew that I worked very hard for that position. I have never and will never commit academic dishonesty in my life. I have always been one of the top students in every grade. It was that evil principal and her daughter who wanted out of the way because they knew that I was her competition. But it did not help because their decision to make me repeat the year was still standing, and there was nothing that my parents could do about it. But that was the last straw for me. They could make fun of the way I looked, spoke, and where I came from, but there was no way I was going to risk my future for them. I come from a struggling household. I did not have a year to sacrifice, especially for such a stupid reason. They thought that just because I was poor, I would not be able to fight back and I would let them walk all over me like they had done. But this time they had crossed a very dangerous line. I went home and wrote a very detailed letter about all that I had experienced at the hands of the school, including the racism and bullying because of my home situation. I attached all the messages Vivian and her friends sent to me when they bullied me throughout even the school holidays. I did not leave anything out. I emailed everything to the few local newspapers that we had in town and hoped for a response from at least one of them. The college was still awaiting the results of my disciplinary hearing, but it did not look good for me at all, and if I lost, I was not going to get admission. I did not know why Vivian and her mom did not let me have my chance at the college, since there was enough space for the both of us. I finally got a response days later after stressing for a very long time, and it was one of the papers wanting to interview me. They came to our house on that very day and talked to my parents and me about the unfair treatment I had been subjected to. It felt so good to finally expose the hell I had gone through, all because I wanted a better education, and thus a better life for my family in the future. The very next issue of the magazine was an expose on the racial inequality at that school, and what they had done to me. There was utter chaos after that as the school was dragged by the other newspapers and on social media. More students and former students started speaking out about how they had been treated at their school, especially people of color who were not very rich. A petition started going around to boycott the school until they released my proper marks and overturned the decision to make me fail. But the school denied any racism or unfair treatment and called me an attention seeker. But the community believed me, especially in my neighborhood where there were people who knew what a hardworking person I was. There were many requests from the school for me to stop telling people lies, and they threatened to expel me, but I did not budge. I was glad that now they had been exposed to the bullies that they were. They thought that I was weak, which was why they did nothing when I was bullied by Vivian and her friends. The newspapers did their job by casting doubt on whether Vivian's mom had faked my cheating in the exams to help her daughter get the position that would most likely be mine. But the pressure from the media was not helping my case, and the school refused to budge. That was when people started donating money so that I would be able to open a case against the school, and we did just that. We hired a lawyer to open a case against the school for racism and for wrongfully failing me. It was a matter of he said, she said for a very long time, and I feared that they would beat me once again, but the judge ordered that an investigation be done into the whole school. It seemed that my principal was not as smart as she thought she was, because even though the system said that I was absent, the attendance register and footage from some of the cameras proved that I had been at that school every day for the past year. The so-called copied exam papers were proven to be false when one of the teachers turned on the school, and revealed that she had been forced to make it look like I had copied. They were able to recover my real academic records, which showed that my marks were much higher than Vivian's. Because not only were they higher, but Vivian's marks were doctored by her mom and she did not even have the appropriate marks to be considered for the scholarship. My case was quickly resolved and the school was found guilty of mistreating me because of my race and background. They were forced to make a public apology to me and my family for what they put me through while the principal had to pay me a settlement fee. After that, the school fired her but was put under investigation for racism. But the biggest win for me was when I got my scholarship from the college back. I was not expecting that at all, but the admissions officer told me that they had been monitoring my case, and they wanted a headstrong person like me to join their school. They instantly revoked the offer they made to Vivian. She was not happy about the decision and took to attacking me on social media, but the people she used to think were her friends had already turned on her. No one supported her anymore and they called her and her mother racist people. Vivian and her mother did not come back to the school after that incident, and I was glad because I would have left if they remained at the school. The money that I got from the settlement was put aside to assist in my living expenses in college. I was so happy that the two people who made my life a living hell throughout my entire high school career had been punished and they lost all the power that they used to oppress me. And to top it off, the school was forced to revise its policy and has been put under strict supervision to make sure that nothing like that happens again. A new principal was also appointed and I was able to finish the rest of my year in peace. I got lucky and I had my community support me, but the truth is that so many young people experience discrimination because of things like culture, and the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who enable this behavior. At least my dream is still alive and I will help my family get out of this situation. Now here is the end of our first story, and I hope you enjoyed OP's vengeance on her principal and her daughter. I am very disappointed to learn that no teacher at OP's school stood up for her and intervened to protect her from bullying. Something seems to be wrong with the fundamentals of the school. Guys, let me know what you think of this story in the comments section, or you can also share your own similar stories and how you dealt with such situations. So before moving to final story, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories. Now, moving to our final story about the revenge. OP took on her father's a whole business partner who made OP and her father's life hell and later came out as a pedo. Now story. Before I start this saga of horrible revenge, let me say, I am the pettiest of people. Normally, it's reserved for a finger in traffic, a rude note on your car, the odd work shenanigans, etc. My father works in the fourth largest city in the nation, which also happens to absorb smaller port towns and surrounding suburbs. He owns a small 2-4-man construction business which is mostly small commercial warehouses that he builds near the port for his clients. They're always in demand and he's been doing it for 20+ years now. I'm not saying he's the nicest Ford driving, NRA loving, all miseducated, outspoken, the oldest son of wealthy parents you'll ever meet, but he's my father. He rescued almost every animal we ever owned as well as talked our mother into agreeing on the matter, a feat wholly in itself. He is the strong shoulder to cry on, always the first to give a hug or good sound solid dad advice regarding anything, even when one of his children came out of the closet unintentionally. The heart of our family. My father is also a diabetic with a myriad of health problems as well as no longer a young man. Growing up, my siblings and I always did odd work for him through the years, especially during high school and college, or when we needed money. You had to earn those strings attached to that cash, in his well-esteemed opinion. He was a decent boss to work for. Paid for lunch and gas out to work sites if they were far, and they often were, and he also paid above minimum wage. He grew up working in his father's grocery stores. My father also had two very common customers. My beloved Uncle John, my father's college roommate, and Alton the Ahole. Uncle John and Ahole were partners in a business like my father's operation, but much larger in our hometown, which borders the mighty Mississippi. Business is always booming, my uncle would always state. He liked to do business both in town and out of town, with Ahole as the money and Uncle John as the foreman, so to speak. He later would take this informal role for my father when he would come to town more frequently. I ducking hated Ahole. He was sexist, condescending, a raging racist, and in general, an all-around prick. He was a douche. The hole for the 150-gallon tree I had spent 2 hours digging. Never deep enough. That trailer that I parked 4 hours ago that requires a gooseneck to move. Move it again. Just a waste of time. I put up with it though because my Uncle John made sure we were paid well on those sites for any extra whole time as he called it. Long story short, everyone hated Ahole for a reason, and it was a good reason. He was also creepy, which I'm about to touch on. When I ended up working on the rare job site for my uncle in Ahole, I had to use a laptop to know where the duck I was planting trees, digging holes, marking the property lines. My uncle did the laying of concrete, etc. We just came in afterward or beforehand, often both, with trees, shrubs, ground cover, lighting, sprinkler systems, etc., as well as retention, my father's specialty as an engineer, hence their in-town mutual partnership. A hole wasn't normally around, so it was more common that I worked with my father or my uncle, my brother as well, while my younger sister worked in the office filing paperwork for the city works, etc. It would be their laptop I was often using. These are laptops in 2009, so you can imagine they aren't as cheap as they are now. Still, I know to be careful with them because I need them. Normally, I would end up using my uncle's laptop because he was the person that was more often on the job site. Ahol was usually not in town, he traveled often, internationally. On one such occasion, he happened to be in town and on the job site. He would breeze into town and announced, make my father cancel appointments with other customers, and doctor's appointments, and just be a prick with my father wasn't in the best of health at times. My uncle and father were out to lunch without Ahol because he had been on the other side of the bay having fresh seafood, while my father tried to reschedule a doctor's appointment and catch something half-decently healthy for him to eat. I asked Ahol if I could use his laptop so I knew what the hell I was doing. He became oddly weird about letting me use it. It couldn't sit on the tailgate, it needed to be inside the cab. I couldn't be on it without him nearby, etc. Just very fishy stuff, but he claimed it had a lot of personal information on it. Honestly, I could have let it go, but it was hot as hell in the middle of summer in Texas and I had enough of his shit. So I feigned stupidity and made it seem as if I needed his assistance to even open the program. It worked and he gave himself the false impression I was tech illiterate, and therefore not a threat to his personal info. He excused himself inside to do duck if I knew. I'm not an idiot with technology. What child of the 80s didn't pirate music in the early 2000s? I went looking through his drives, etc. pretty quickly looking for anything. I was expecting a cheating husband, a shitty father, etc. Not a pedophile, I won't state what I saw, but it was questionable at best, on the best day in a dream courtroom. I couldn't shut the windows fast enough or get my father on the phone to tell him what I saw. All he told me was to leave the laptop alone and not touch it. It confidently came up missing a few days later. A week after that, oddly enough, Ahol can't leave our home state until the end of 2017. He's also a registered sex offender. Now, here is the end of our today's story. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I am happy OP and his family members are safe, also glad he got what was coming, after how he treated OP and her dad. In my opinion, people like him are a real threat to society, and children. Guys, let me know what's your opinion about this story, and what do you think what should be the punishment for such people? Share your opinion in the comments section. So before leaving, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories.